Want to travel for free, or at least cut the cost of flights, hotels, and tropical vacations? Barry Choi is a travel and personal finance blogger at Money We Have, and I wanted to bring him on the show to show us how to win at this travel game. Welcome to the Maple Money Show, the podcast that helps Canadians improve their personal finances to create lasting financial freedom. I wanted to let you know about Smart Savings, a new offering from our sponsor Wealthsimple. Smart Savings is a better way to save with no fees on deposits or withdrawals, plus higher interest rates than the big banks. You can find out more at maplemoney.com/wealthsimple. Let's talk with Barry. Hi, Barry. Welcome to the Maple Money Show.
Thanks.
So I want to have you on because you're sort of my Canadian travel expert. Privately, I've asked you everything whenever I'm looking to save on travel. So one of the first questions I had was, just traveling within Canada, is there a way to save money there? Because it seems like I live in Calgary, and when I want to go to Toronto, it costs me more than I can go to like Anaheim or Florida or something like that with the family.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's the same reason why I don't visit Vancouver when I can find England for cheaper. It's really tricky, but I would say recently it's getting a little bit better. And by better, it's like a little bit cheaper, but then you also need to factor in your time. So there's Flair Airlines, which is based out of Edmonton, and they do a lot of destinations within Canada. So they do Edmonton to Hamilton, which is a way to save, but at the same time, if you're in Calgary, you got to drive to Edmonton and then you got to drive from Hamilton, Toronto. So, you save $200, but if you add 4 hours to your time, it's like, is it worth it? Probably not. So unfortunately, it's really tricky. There's no real cheap way to travel within Canada. That's just a reality.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Well, how about airline flights in general? One thing I was interested in was the timing. I never know, should I be buying on a certain day of the week? Should I be buying like half a year in advance or last minute?
Yeah. So to me, there's a few things we're talking about here. A lot of times there's like these articles that come out and say, hey, this is the best time to book your flight. And then you get all of a sudden you have a ton of people who are waiting, Wednesday night on a full moon at 2 a.m. just to book the airfare thinking it's the best thing possible. And it's like, I just don't think it's true. Now, if you were comparing millions of flights like these search engines have the data for, yeah, technically you could say this is the cheapest time, but for an average person, like it's a giant aggregate, so you can't really factor that in. When we talk about last minute things, people still in their minds think it's like, oh, I can fly standby, or if I get a last minute flight, I can get a deal. It's like that does not exist anymore because the computers have modeled everything out. They know exactly what's going to sell and when. So generally speaking, when you fly at the last minute, you're going to pay double. Right? It's just because they know it's like, oh, you want to fly this last second? We're going to charge you for it, right? That being said, that doesn't mean there's not cheap airfare available. So normally there's two things to consider: your destination and the time. So you can have one or the other. You just can't have both if you're looking for low airfare, right? So if you've got set dates in mind and you want to go to New York, okay, the odds are you're not going to get a deal because you got some money. Now, if you're wanting to go to New York and you don't care what time of the year it is, or if you only want to travel, say, during October and you don't care where you're going, you'll likely find a deal, right? You just can't have it all.
Yeah. So say I want to go to New York on a certain weekend. So does it help to book as absolutely early as possible? Like if I know about this a year out, does that help?
So generally speaking, usually the best idea to do is just set up a price alert, right? But if you have, so a price alert is you set, you're going to New York, you set your dates, and Kayak or Google Flights will just send you an email whenever the price drops. But again, realistically speaking, it's not like the flight is going to drop hundreds of dollars. Getting examples from Toronto to get there on Porter, it's about $350. If I were to fly from Pearson with Air Canada, it might be $600. So right away, I've already got one option to save me money, right? Yeah. Now, the odds of that Porter flight dropping in price, it could happen. There's no doubt about that. But again, it's just like, what if it drops $40, $50, $60, but I'm waiting months for it to, like, what's the point, right? Isn't it a little bit easier to just book your flight and find a way to save $50 on the ground instead?
How about one of the things I've never been able to figure out is I hear about people sort of getting into first class or some kind of upgrade,
Mhm.
sometimes for next to nothing or nothing. How does that work? Because whenever I see it, even last minute, it's like $70 for a 2-hour flight, and it doesn't seem worth it to me.
Yeah, so we're talking about first class, business class flights for cheap. For most people, it's like, if you're lucky, it's overbooked and they just happen to bump you up. Right. Those are the stories you hear.
Yeah.
Or at the same time, there's a lot of those people who apply for a ton of credit cards and get a lot of points, and eventually they have enough where they can book a flight for cheap. The problem is in Canada, our credit card bonuses and point system isn't as lucrative as the US. So it's not as easy to get a huge amount of points. It can be done. It just depends on what you're willing to do and how many credit cards you want to sign up for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm always a little jealous. I read American sites where it seems like people are traveling for
Oh,
free
it's nuts.
all the
You
time.
look at the sign up bonuses in the US and they're literally double of what you get in Canada. So you could be getting 100,000 points. And, right away, that alone is a business class flight to Europe. You know what I mean? It's like I would sign up in a second for that. It's just not available in Canada.
Yeah. Plus, they seem to have cheaper flights. Like if I fly within the U.S., I can do it for $250 maybe.
That's right. So there's more competition in the US. There's more population. So it's easier for a lot of airlines to find routes that are profitable. At the same time, just increased competition. There's more carriers, there's less taxes. And again, it's just a greater population. When there's more people, there's just more demand. In Canada, it's a bigger country and there's fewer people. So it's harder for airlines to make money. They can't offer lower prices because or else they just won't make money.
Yeah, good point. You touched on credit cards, and normally I like to keep the show sort of as open and not date specific as possible. But are there certain credit cards right now that would be good choices? I know they're not as good as the U.S. ones, but are there certain ones that you think would help?
Yeah, it just depends on what you're trying to do. So a good example is if you happen to be based in Calgary or Alberta, WestJet has their own MasterCard, and it's got an annual fee of $120. $20. What people don't forget is number one, there's a $250 WestJet dollar sign up bonus, and on top of that, there's a $99 companion fare once a year within Canada. So that alone makes it worthwhile because, like we were just talking about, how if I were to fly from Toronto to Vancouver, it could cost me $600. Well, if I'm paying that for my fare and I fly WestJet with a companion ticket for $99, all of a sudden it's costing me $700 for two people. That's pretty reasonable. Or that's actually a really good price. And people also forget, if you want to fly to the US, WestJet's got some destinations there. All of a sudden it's $199, and they do service some international destinations too. So you could get that companion fare for $299. So it's not just the credit card itself; it's also the bonuses that come with it. Another good card right now, recently that came out, is a Scotiabank Passport Infinite card. It's got no foreign transaction fees. You get a sign up bonus. There's a $120 annual, 120 or 139, something around those lines. You get 6 airport lounge access and a comprehensive travel insurance package. So again, people sometimes focus on the sign-up bonus, but it's worth looking at other benefits such as travel insurance and figuring out, am I going to use this? Is it worth my while? And a lot of times the answer is yes, because you should never be traveling without travel insurance. And if your credit card already comes with that, you basically paid for it in advance, and then all the other perks of having that credit card just come with it.
Yeah, one card I use for a lot of my personal spending is the BMO World Elite MasterCard.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the 2% kind of same as cash, so I don't have to play the points game like with something like Air Miles.
Yeah, it just depends. Like the BMO World Elite MasterCard, which is their travel credit card, is also very good, but they've devalued it recently, so it costs more points to make a redemption. But at the same time, it's still a decent card, right? You got to look at the overall package. A lot of people forget with these points when you're collecting, it's like they could be devalued at any second. So you shouldn't be trying to hoard onto as many points as you can. You should try to burn them when you can.
Yeah, exactly. Or even back when a year or so ago, when Air Miles was looking at canceling everybody's points,
Yeah.
it shows why I don't want to hoard them too long.
Exactly. Of course, the problem with Air Miles is even when you want to make a redemption, it was near impossible. That was a problem right there.
Yeah, I bought a TV and these headphones actually that I'm using right now.
Yeah, probably just because you had to use those points, and then you realize it's like I had to spend how much? Like,
yeah, I was getting a little concerned towards the end there.
Especially at some of the co-branded stores. It's funny. You look at Air Miles at Metro grocery store here in Toronto. It's like I got to spend $20 for 1 point. It's ridiculous. Yeah, if I got a co-branded credit card, I'd earn more. But at the same time, it's like I was just saying, it's like, what am I going to use those points for? Sometimes you just got to look at where you're doing your regular everyday shopping. It could be grocery stores. Look for that co-branded credit card. Like I shop at a lot of Loblaws branded stores, so using the PC Financial World Elite MasterCard really benefits me because I basically get 3% back, 4.5 at Shoppers Drug Mart. But at the same time, if you shop at other stores where they've got a co-branded credit card or certain gas stations, think about if you can get 4 times the points. It could be worth your while.
Yeah, for sure. There's one more thing. It's not so much a money tip, but within this airline part of our talk, what are your tips about sort of dealing with airports? Like I've always looked at people jealously as they go through the fast lines and stuff. How do you get that and save some time when you're traveling?
Well, this is easy because right now there's Nexus, right, for all Canadians available. And a lot of people forget that you don't necessarily need to be traveling to the U.S. on a regular basis. It's $50 and it gets you 5 years, but it allows you to skip all the lines. So it doesn't matter where you are as long as you're flying within Canada and the U.S., obviously, you get that priority line right away. So that makes things a little bit easier. Certain airports also, like Pearson, if you have one of the American Express Platinum cards, they also let you skip the lines. And at the same time, you need to be a frequent traveler to kind of know what you're doing. It's like, what good is having these express lines if all of a sudden you're carrying bottles of water, sharp objects in your luggage, you're constantly being stopped, right? Yeah. You kind of need to be an efficient traveler and just use these tools like the Nexus or your credit card to help you speed up the process. That being said, you clear these lines and all of a sudden you're waiting for the plane anyway. So it's kind of like, does it really matter? But, I do agree that, when I'm able to skip the lines, I do kind of laugh at the people who are like lining up for an hour, right? It's like, I'm glad I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I feel like the person lining up. But the thing is, I only think about getting Nexus about 2 weeks before my flight.
That's exactly it. A lot of people, unless someone's telling you to get it, most people kind of forget about it. I wasn't doing a ton of travel and I just got Nexus because like, you know what? I go to the U.S. enough. Like, why not? And by enough, I mean once a year. Yeah. And after you've gone through it once, it's fantastic. And again, people also forget it's not just the U.S. Like whenever I come home from an international trip, every Canadian airport has a Nexus line. So you bypass all the customs line. You just go to the Nexus machine and it's literally a few seconds, right? Now, if you've checked your bag, you still got to wait for your bag. But if you can do carry-on only, you can be off the plane and on the road pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of carry-on only as often as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's switch a little here. I was wondering about hotels. Is there certain ways we can save on them?
Yeah, so unlike airlines, hotels are one of those few places where if you book as early as possible, quite often you can get a discount. Which is nice, especially if you're willing to pay up front for the entire amount, non-refundable. They'll give you bigger discounts. But I actually don't see that as a big enough incentive because often this might only be 5% or it might only be $10. So it's like, wait, you got to like give up everything. And if you change your plans, you lose all the money, whereas paying $10 more is that you can cancel at any time. It's like, just pay the $10 more. It's like, who cares? Right? There's one tip. You also need to look at the nice thing about hotels is there's so much options. So obviously, if you're staying at a big brand hotel, it's going to cost you more. But boutique hotels, smaller chains, or even motels, you can get decent value if you're looking for just a place to stay, right? Now, that's not to say that the big chains don't offer value. Both Marriott and SPG, if you book 4 nights, they give you the 5th night free, right? So there's decent value there. That extra night is worth a few $100s. On top of that, the big chains have loyalty programs. Marriott's merging with SVG formally on the 18th. All of a sudden, you're going to have access to 6,500 properties all over the world. So if you're using a co-branded credit card, staying at those hotels often, you can get a lot of free stuff. Again, because it's a big chain, they're more expensive on a regular night-to-night basis, but there are opportunities to save at the same time.
How about credit cards with this? I've heard, but I've never done it. I've always used my credit card rewards for airfare. But I've heard sometimes that works out better for hotels, or at least maybe more flexible.
Yeah, I always find hotel co-branded credit cards to be more flexible. So with Marriott Rewards, there are no blackout dates. So, when you're trying to book a flight on rewards, you got to pay taxes and there may not necessarily be a seat available. It's crazy to think that, you saved up 100,000 points to get this business class flight and then you just can't get a seat because it's just not available. Like that to me has always been silly. I just like hotel rewards because there's always going to be a room. Many of these major hotel chains have multiple properties in the city. So if one doesn't have availability or it's not what you're looking for, you can see what else is available. What's also nice about a lot of hotel rewards programs is they let you transfer to airline partners. So often it may not be as good of a value, but you do have that option, right? To me, that is incredibly valuable. Also with loyalty with hotels is you got to think about the small things. By joining loyalty programs, or if you have SES, you might get free breakfast, free lounge access, free Wi-Fi, free parking, right? There's all these small things. You just really got to know the details.
Nice. Have you personally tried, or do you at least recommend Airbnb at all?
Yeah, I use Airbnb on a pretty regular basis. Back in the day when it was first announced, this was probably I feel like 7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, people weren't really using Airbnb. So I was getting some really good deals. I was able to get a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan for $140 Canadian. I split it with 2 friends, so it cost us, like $50 each, not even. So it was a great opportunity. In Budapest, my wife and I got a room for about $70 a night. In Seoul, I was 5 years ago, it was $50 a night. In Shanghai, it was $65 a night. But now, if I were to do the exact same thing, it's double the price. So Airbnb is one of those things where it's I love it, but at the same time, the prices have gone up significantly over time. So if I'm looking for a kitchen or a little bit more space, I would consider it. But at the same time, the price now is very similar to hotels. So if I'm looking to be pampered, or sometimes if I want a better location, I'll just pay for the hotel instead.
Yeah, I've always done hotels. The only time I've even gone in that direction is I've used the site HomeAway. But they've got, maybe Airbnb has this too, but HomeAway had sort of big houses that could hold a lot of people, and it was very rental based, it was run through a rental company and everything.
Yeah, so Airbnb has similar properties available, and there's so much of VRBO or vacation rentals, right? So to me, it's just a personal choice. If you've used Airbnb, great. But at the same time, you got to be careful about who you're booking with. We've all heard horror stories about Airbnb hosts where people who stay wreck the houses, or at the same time, people who are staying expecting get something totally different. That's why whenever I do use Airbnb, I make sure I'm using a room or an apartment or a house that is highly reviewed, and I can verify the identity of the person.
Yeah, that sounds good. That reminds me of anything like eBay or Uber, where you can kind of use those reviews to
exactly
judge what you're going to get. Yeah. Similar to Airbnb, have you tried Turo, the rental?
I haven't used Turo myself personally, but I'm pretty familiar with it. I find it to be pretty interesting because it's great in the sense that it's cheaper than car rental companies, but in the end, you have to return to the same owner, right? Yeah. I like it more the fact that if you're at home and you want to drive a nice car or test out the car for a special occasion, say an anniversary dinner, renting a car on Turo is probably cheaper than renting a car from an exotic car rental agency.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, well, that's what caught my attention was that you can rent a Tesla for $150 for the one day.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, that's better than waiting a few years after purchasing a Tesla, right? So you can have fun with that.
Yeah, for sure. So we kind of covered airlines and hotels. Another thing I was interested in was, I'll hit you with 2 things at once because maybe they're similar, is I want to go somewhere warm, like either an all-inclusive or a cruise. Do you have tips for either of those? I haven't done an all-inclusive since my honeymoon, and we've never been on a cruise. So both of them we're kind of interested in.
Yeah, so they're 2 different things. An all-inclusive is pretty much exactly like what it sounds, right? If you want to sit on a beach and be pampered for a week, sure, that's great. But you also got to be smart about what location you're picking, thinking about the day activity. So a place like Jamaica has a lot of great day trips. You could go zip lining, mountain biking, Duns Falls. And if you went to Cuba, you could go into town. But, you got to think about what you're getting and what the food is famous for. So Jamaica has some slightly better food, and also depends on the resort property, right? If you're going to a name brand property like a Barrel Star Hotels, you're definitely going to get high quality food and service, right? Yeah. But if you're booking the cheapest place possible, 3 stars, $1,000 for a week, including your airfare, sometimes you get exactly what you pay for, right? Okay. That being said, there's always up and coming destinations somewhere. It's northern part of South America or Central America, destinations where the resorts are coming up. The beaches may not be as sexy, but at the same time, you'll get good service and good food for a reasonable value. Now, cruises are interesting just because you have so many different options, right? You can do a short 3-day, 4-day cruise, New England and New York. You can do a cruise of Scandinavia, through Asia, the Middle East, whatever you want, right? Mm-hmm. And they have so many different sizes. There's also Viking cruises that go down the Rhine or smaller rivers in Europe. So you really need to do your research and figure out what you want to do. And you got to be comfortable with it. My wife does not like being on oceans or large body of water, so she would never consider a cruise, whereas I'd be like, this looks kind of fun. Like, I'd do it. Right?
With either of those, do those sort of timing rules apply? Like, is similar to a hotel, is there a benefit to booking as early as possible? Or?
Yeah, with cruises, it's like one of those things where actually, if you just sign up for the mailing list, quite often they'll have promotions running, which can benefit you. But overall, there's not really a ton of deals you can get. Like, quite often what they'll just really do is include onboard credits as an incentive. So if you're looking to save money, you technically can. But getting huge discounts on cruises only applies if you're willing to do, say, a repositioning cruise. That's where the cruises are moving from one area of the country, of the world, to another because of the seasons. So example right now is it's getting close to hurricane season right now in North America. So eventually what the cruises will end up doing is they'll position themselves from, say, Miami, and then go across to Europe and start doing Scandinavia. So if you jump on and say Miami, it'll do a few ports, but you have quite a few days at sea and you end up in Europe. It's actually relatively inexpensive, but you also need to factor in the 2 one-way flights you got to purchase.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that even existed though. So that's something I'll look into personally. Last question I really had for you. Is there certain sites or apps that you'd recommend? I found one, I think it was called, I'm going to mess this up. I think it was like YYC Deals, but I think there's I think there's a certain one for every airport. And
so I used to like YYC Deals until I realized that in the past he was great, but recently I've quickly realized that he steals a lot of his content from other people and does not give credit. So now I prefer nextdeparture.ca, which is a very similar site. And the funny thing is, he used to provide a lot of deals for YYC Deals, and once he started his own site, the owner of YYZ started banning him. And it's funny, if you sign up for both newsletters, you'll see Next Departure with his alert, and then 10 minutes later, all of a sudden YYZ Deals has it, right?
Yeah, as soon as the information's out there,
Yeah, it's a bit of a scummy game because a lot of people are just competing because it has to do with referrals and no one gives each other credit. So that's good, but it comes down to kind of what we were talking about earlier. If you're totally flexible, you can get a deal, right? But if you're expecting for those exact dates, no, you're not going to get it. To me, there's also other sites to consider. Like Google Flights has an Explore tool where basically if you put in your budget and how many days you want to go for, it'll tell you, it's like, oh, well, this is the cheapest airfare you can find right now, right? So, there's also Hotels Tonight where you can book hotels in advance, sometimes literally the same day. Normally booking last minute is expensive, but with hotels and Hotels Tonight, you can book last minute and get some pretty decent deals. So there are a lot of sites you can play around. I actually still like TravelZoo because they negotiate a lot of deals directly. So they're very specific, but at the same time, they've always got good deals. I remember 2 years ago, they had this great Iceland 7-day package, and it was only $1,200, which I thought was a great deal.
Mm-hmm. And I know TravelZoo as well, and it seems like they get enough deals that, similar like you said, if you're okay on your date but not your destination, you can pretty much book a week off and just wait for that right deal to come.
Exactly. I think the problem is most people, they need to request their vacation time months in advance. If you happen to have a job that gives you flexibility or you're self-employed, then great. But the majority of people do not have that flexibility.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for being on the show. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can reach me on my personal website at moneywehave.com or on Twitter at Barry Choi.
Awesome. Thanks for being on.
Anytime.
Thanks again to Barry Choi for the great travel tips. You can find show notes for this episode at MapleMoney.com/Barry Choi. If you're a new listener, search for MapleMoney in your podcast app and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. And I'm looking forward to you coming back next week.